Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and young children and older people as well. Senior citizens. I'm, I'm like getting up there, so I might. I'm not quite at the senior citizen level yet, but
Closer than I am.
I can see it off in the distance. I want those sweet discounts.
Yeah, I guess my dad and I have the same first name, so I get a lot of mail from Medicare providers. And I'm like, okay, cool, like good job doing your research there, folks. But yeah, it's I feel like a senior citizen sometimes.
For
Especially
sure.
if the Cubs are like on a West Coast swing. But it's nice because they at least for a short period there had a little of that Eastern time zone action, and I could get done. But it is nice they're not playing today, and I can settle in and watch some Thursday night football with teams that I don't give a crap about. I guess Green Bay, but
don't really care about Green Bay. I mean, you just want them to lose,
right? I do not care for them. I care about them in as much as their play will impact what the Bears do. Although if the Bears keep Bearsing, then it won't really matter what the Packers do.
Woo! That was rough. I got to tell you, man. I mean, Caleb Williams, boy, did he miss some wide open guys downfield, and like just in general.
It looked bad toward the end, and I think what made it so much worse because the Cubs had just pissed away that game.
Yeah,
right. Like they a couple of the Cubs were
whammy.
They pissed away the Sunday night or the Sunday afternoon game, and then on Monday they just got beat right out of the gate. And so it was like, oh, the Cubs are terrible. And this is, and apologies to those obviously who were joining us to hear about the Cubs. But for those of us who have the crossover, right, who I was like, there's a shitstorm tornado that blew through the trailer park of the Venn diagram overlap between Cubs fans and Bears fans on Monday. But it was like, man, the Cubs played like crap, and they lost a couple games in a row, 3 games in a row at that point, right? And it was like,
yeah,
oh man, great, the Bears are up, and the Bears go out and they score their first opening drive touchdown in over a full season. They didn't have one.
It was feeling good.
Yeah, they hadn't done it in 12 games.
Much like the Cubs did to start the season,
right? And then it was like
everything was feeling good.
Womp womp, and you're just like, oh, come on, dude.
Yeah. The only upside there is the Bears. At least they pulled the rug out from underneath us like very quickly. Right, like we didn't have to wait.
Yeah, I mean, I guess and I'm used to it. But it was funny, because a lot of people we've talked about this on here. A lot of people keep talking about but the Cubs are still whatever, and I'm like, that's great, right? And I can appreciate, and I have said, like, history has shown us all you got to do is get in. The problem with that is when you get in based on momentum you had established in June. And that momentum no longer exists outside of a Cade Horton start. And again, they won yesterday and got a close one in the kind of game they need to win. Although not against a good team on as far as the record goes, but the Braves are still really good on paper if you look at the talent they've got. And Chris Sale is still really, really good. So to win a game that he starts is positive. Again, though, the only problem is we're not seeing a team that can consistently beat up on other teams, right? Like they'll score a few runs. They did win a close one, and that's good to see. But this isn't the same stuff we saw where they were going out and just scoring 6 and 7 runs pretty much night in and night out, right? They were averaging over 5 runs a game for a period there. And that is the part that is concerning. Not because we can look at it and say, yes, all you've got to do is make it. Sure. But most teams that do that, they kind of get hot. They get on a little bit of a run and they carry that momentum. And the Cubs still have a little bit of time to do that. But my concern is just that in the second half, this is not they're 2 games over 500 now. I think 20. It's like 26 and 24 in the second half, somewhere along those lines. And not doing it in very convincing fashion. That's the part. It just lost another closer to injury, and Danny P might be back, but. The Kyle Tucker situation is funky. There's just a lot that when you look at this team, man, they're not doing a whole lot to inspire optimism to at least to any great degree.
Yeah. Well, and fortunately, neither are the Brewers.
Yeah. They just got swept.
They're actually playing, as bad, if not worse than the Cubs. The Cubs are 5-4 so far in September. The Brewers are 4-5. Got the numbers here. The Cubs' magic number, by the way, for a wild card playoff spot is 8. The Brewers' magic number to win the division right now is 11. It's been that for a few days because they just got swept by the Rangers. And so that was fun. And yeah, I mean, the Brewers, fortunately for them, have a relatively weak schedule. I mean, they played the Cardinals 3 against the Cardinals at home. Then they have a day off. And then they play 3 against the Angels at home. And then they go to St. Louis for 3. And so if you're the Brewers, you're not feeling terrible about winning the division, right? I mean, right now they've got, what is it, a 5.5 game lead?
Yep.
Yeah.
They do.
And so, but it's teetering there, right? I mean, like, a couple games, 1 week, and that number could get down to 2.
Well, and they're only 2.5 up on Philly now for the best record in the National League as well.
Yeah.
And so that impacts, that's again, is that huge? No, because I mean, at the end of the day, you've still got to win the games. But right, if you're looking at the potential of missing out on home field advantage in the NLCS, you're maybe facing a different opponent.
Probably not going to miss out on home fielded. Well, yeah, they could, I guess, if they don't have that one seed. I mean, they're definitely pretty much locked in for a bye, I would guess.
Oh yeah,
the Dodgers are they're 6.5 up on the Dodgers.
Yeah, that's not even. Yeah, that's what the funny thing
is. They have a bigger lead on the Dodgers than they do on the Cubs.
Yeah, the Cubs are ahead of the Dodgers right now, which is kind of, and that's kind of reminiscent of 2015 when you look at the Cubs getting in, obviously with just the one wild card at the time, but when you had or there were two because that was a 1 game play in. I'm sorry. But the fact that the 1 game play in was between the two teams, the Pirates and the Cubs, that had the second and the third best record in the entire National League. The NL Central had the 3 best teams because didn't the Cardinals win 100 or 101 or something? I mean, the Cubs had 97 wins, right? And the Pittsburgh was like 98, 99. I mean, it was something crazy, right? We were like these 3 teams with over 95 wins, all in the same division.
Yeah.
And 2 of them have to play a 1 game. So, which I will still say is far more exciting. It's a little more nerve-wracking. It's far more exciting than a 3-game series all at the host team's site, which I don't know, man. I get that it's in the interest of time and travel and all that. I just find that kind of strange. I don't like that format, but they didn't ask me when they set it up. So,
well, the interesting part about the Brewers being in the number 1 spot, if they stay there, which it feels like they're not going to, I'm going to predict that they fall out of that number 1 spot. The interesting thing about it, though, is that they would play the winner of the 4-5 matchup, which right now will be most likely the Cubs and someone else. Right now, most likely the Padres. The Cubs have a 4-game lead on the Padres and a 7-game lead on the Mets. Now, they do play the Mets for 3 games coming up. So, I mean, I guess it's possible that the Mets can close that gap, but to overcome a 7-game lead, not likely. So you're probably looking at the Cubs being in the 4 or the 5 wild card spot. And then playing the winner of that series would play the number 1 seed right now would be the Brewers. And I mean, that would be very interesting. I would love to see that. And just to remind our viewers, the Cubs did win the season series against the Milwaukee Brewers. While I know that there are some Brewers fans out there that don't want to accept the reality of that situation, it is true. And so it'd be very interesting.
Do you think we're going to clip this? Do you think we'll clip this and put it out as a reel so that more Brewers fans will find our reels on our site and comment?
Brewers fans love us.
I know, it's kind of wild. They love.
They know we speak the truth.
Yeah, which is fine. And I get, hey, look, man, I get it. They can all point to the scoreboard. They can all point and
those World Series championships they've won.
Exactly. Well, there was a very astute commenter who said, well, maybe next time win a World Series, it doesn't take you 108 years. And it's kind of like, my dude, maybe win a World Series, right? Like, I don't know. 2016 is a lot more recent. You can throw that, never, right? Yeah, maybe have a leg to stand on before you go trying to kick somebody. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, I mean, I think that MLB certainly would want that because it creates I mean, they would. I think they would also love to see the Padres and the Dodgers playing. You know what I mean? But there's Phillies Mets. A matchup like that just because of divisional rivalry and they're on the East. But even that, like maybe I'm too far removed from it, but there's from a national perspective, there's nothing there about Phillies Mets that you're like, oh yeah, that's a matchup I want to see, outside of like the individuals and Juan Soto and
no, I mean,
Kyle
I think
Schwarber,
if
Bryce
you've got
Harper,
like ties to the East Coast, it's a cool matchup.
But it's not like historically like, oh man, I got nobody outside of nobody, hey, if you're a Phillies fan or a Mets fan, that's cool. But I don't think the rest of the country is looking at that like, oh, that's something. I think Cubs, Milwaukee, Cubs, Brewers. I think that's one that you'll see. I think that generates some interest, right? And you've got some young names and things like that. In addition to it, Mizrowski and Orton and guys like that. But I think that's one certainly. And Brewers fans can say all they want. I don't think that's a good matchup for them. I mean, it's not. The Cubs have beaten them. Like you said, they have won the season series. The Brewers have consistently fallen short in the postseason, although they might tell you that that's because they had Craig Counsell at the time and he didn't know what he was doing in October, and now the shoe's on the other foot. So who knows? But I do think that would certainly be interesting, to say the very least. I would have a lot of anxiety over it just because I hate losing more than I love winning, and so when it's a rivalry matchup like that, then that the fear of losing to a Brewers team is kind of a greater driver for me than the joy of being able to beat them until the games are over. And if the Cubs did beat them, then that would feel all the more sweet for that. But I'm kind of I've got my little foibles and flaws in that regard.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. And I mean, it's right now, it feels like mostly positioning for the playoffs. I mean, if you look at, the Reds are what, way back. The Reds are the Mets are 2 up on the Reds. So it's possible that, and hey, they are the Mets. So we all know that they have a
9 games for the Reds there. And they've won 2 in a row. They're doing okay. They've gained, I think they've gained 1 on the Cubs over the last 10. But again, I don't think that's something we've got to worry too much about. No,
not at all. And so, as we look forward, it's going to be very interesting to see how, will the Brewers, what are the Brewers going to do in this next series? What are the Cubs going to do? I mean, are the Cubs going to be able to get past some of these injuries? When's Tucker going to come back?
Give me just a moment. I'm going to excuse myself. You talk with our audience for a while. I will address something that's going on elsewhere here, and I will be back.
So I will continue. What's going to happen if I'm looking at the standings right now, and the Cubs have a 5.5 games back of the Brewers, and it feels like, if we look forward, the Cubs play 3 at home against Tampa, and then they go on the road 3 against the Pirates, and then 4 against the Reds. Now the Reds are going to be motivated to play, and they're going to be motivated to win because they're fighting for that last wild card spot. But they are, I think they're currently under 500. If I'm not, no, they're 2 games over 500. So they're just barely 2 games over 500. And so, and then the Cubs play the Mets at Wrigley and then finish out with the Cardinals, which is a rivalry matchup, but who knows, the Cardinals aren't really doing well. And so it's really set up to be kind of an interesting finish here when you've got the Cardinals coming to Milwaukee, a day off, and then the Angels at Milwaukee. And so that, when I look at that, it feels very much like at the end of that Angels series, the Brewers should pretty much have the division locked up. If they do not have the division locked up at the end of that series, the Brewers have some problems because they then go and they play against the Cardinals and then against the Padres and then against the Reds, a team that who knows if the Reds will be out of the playoff race by the time they play the Brewers there at the end of at the end of the season. So there's a lot of things that can happen here. And neither team is showing that they are really the Cubs are just trying to patch themselves together, right? And just get everything positioned so that everyone is healthy for the playoffs. I don't know what's going on with the Brewers. They're just not playing well. But, you got Ballesteros. Jeez, I'm bad with last names. Who's up right now, which I love. I love seeing him up. You've got Horton, who's continues to perform really well. Yeah, Tyon just came back. Ethan Roberts kind of waiting in the wings, and he's back down in Iowa.
Roberts he got bumped down.
Yeah, but he's waiting in the wings in Iowa, and and you've got who else is injured? Let's see. Teal Bar's back. He's good.
Amaya's out. Palencia's out.
Yeah. So is Amaya going to come back for the end of the season?
They expect him back. Soroka is supposed to pitch today, I believe.
Okay.
He's supposed to throw in Iowa, so he might be activated for the weekend.
Yeah.
At some point. I don't know where else they go with that, but I feel, and actually, we're seeing Aaron Savali has looked fairly good in that relief role, which incidentally, that would be really funny if he played a role in a potential Cubs Brewers playoff series, because as you recall, he started out with the Brewers. They were going to bump him to the bullpen when they called Jacob Mizrowski up. And he was like, nope, don't want to do it. I want to be traded. And so they exiled him to the south side of Chicago, traded him to the White Sox. And then what? Didn't they get Andrew Vaughn in that one? And then Vaughn just went off for the Brewers. Savali kind of sucked on the south side. Cubs picked him up. He's looked pretty decent. I think Michael Soroka with his velocity back, which it sounds like it was in a recent bullpen, they've got this kind of patchwork thing going on a little bit, but it could end up working out pretty well, and if they get Palencia back, if they've got, Porter Hodge looks like he's kind of coming back around. Ben Brown just had a really good relief appearance. We've seen Brad Keller, Andrew Kittredge has looked really good. It's starting to think I'm feeling pretty optimistic about the pitching staff, despite everything I've been feeling for most of the season.
Well, if they all come back, I have my concerns about Ben Brown. That's just not going to go away. I mean, I could see him in a 1 inning, max 2 inning relief role. Definitely not as a starter. And so I just don't know how he fits into the Cubs roster, the playoff roster, if he's healthy.
Yeah.
I'm also a little concerned with Palencia.
I'm very concerned about him. Yeah.
He just throws the ball in the middle of the plate too much.
Yeah.
And he's got good stuff.
But that's where the shift kind of started to happen. If you look at, it was the start of August, I think. And he was, because we saw him, he was really doing a good job of elevating that fastball. And for whatever reason, right, and I don't know if that's just a matter of if it's fatigue, if there was kind of, a lot of times with these injuries and things like that, right, it's not necessarily an acute issue. It's not something that just popped up with one for now.
It's just a nagging thing, right?
Yeah, in that last one, it certainly looked like he had gotten there, but you could almost see it before it happened. And this, again, this could be hindsight or, the confirmation bias thing. It looked to me, though, and having watched plenty of, he's not a kid, but he's still a young pitcher, and I think falls into those tendencies. We've all seen it. If you are watching dudes who are trying to gear up for something extra, they muscle up. And you can see it and it looked as though he was reaching back for something, just something more than what he really had. And then it just, that shoulder seized up on him. You could almost just sense it was going to be bad. And so, and it was bad. That was a terrible outing. But if you can get him back and being relaxed, and that's, I think the difficult part is people don't understand a lot of times, or they don't pay attention to, or even they don't believe in, which would be silly, but they don't. The mental aspect of being a closer, being a high leverage pitch, that is so, and that's why a lot of times I really believe. Now, I don't excuse a pitcher. You say, well, it's a non-safe situation. They come in and they don't do well, but it is a different deal to live off that adrenaline, to know that role, to have that role, and to then not be in it, or conversely, to be used to a non-save situation and then have to come in under the brightest lights against the 2, 3, 4 hitters in the ninth inning with a one-run lead. Those are vastly different situations, and those pitches do put more stress on guys than otherwise. So we'll see, but the thing that I will come out of, if the Cubs can finish strong, I do see a silver lining in the idea that they've had to go through multiple late inning relievers. They've had to churn through a bunch of closers, and that means that outside, Presley's no longer there, Julian Merriweather's no longer there. But when you're looking at Hodge, when you're looking at Keller, Kittredge has 2 or 3 saves now, I think. Thielbar's got a save. Hell, Colin Ray's got a save. Daniel Palencia's got saves. Porter Hodge has, right? You have a bunch of guys who have served in that role. And so you are able, not that you want to rotate those doors, but what I'm saying is I think they have a lot of guys who they could cycle through there. And when you are talking about a rapid fire playoff situation, if you do have to play multiple games in short succession, they're not dependent upon one guy at the end of that bullpen to have to get it done.
Can you make an argument that you really want that to be the case, though, that you actually want the Cubs to be, any team really, to have that one lockdown guy, and that by not having that one lockdown guy, you would
rather have that for sure. But why are they in this situation? They had, Presley failed and was hurt and still failed again. Hodge was kind of didn't do well and was hurt and similar, so forth. And Palencia came in, and then that kind of went down. So it's not as if you have somebody who has had that role, then gets hurt at the end of the season, and now you're filling that. I would rather have. I mean, look at what Aroldis Chapman hadn't given up a hit and 80 million batters or something. But
they should trade for him.
Yeah, but I'm saying given the situation as they are facing it, I think that having to have gone through that, having to kind of shuffle some guys around, means that they'll be better off should they have to do more of the same, because we still don't know, right? I was kind of surprised to see Brad Keller pitch and not get the ninth inning, and to instead have Kittredge come in in that role. But I do it, and I don't know if council addressed it. Whatever, but it does feel like they still want to keep Keller as that non-closer, high leverage guy. So even if that's the 6th, the 7th inning, like, hey, the team's heart of the order is coming up. Here's the guy that we're going to put up there in a close game to shut this inning down, regardless of what inning it is. And then I think that's kind of, wasn't that how the Dodgers were kind of using Clay Holmes there for a while? I mean, we've seen that. We saw that with Devin Williams in Milwaukee when he was still there, and Josh Hader was still closing games, and Williams was kind of the setup man, but it wasn't just the 8th. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle that. But I feel like that back end of the bullpen, and you've got some multi-inning guys. I like the way that sets up for when you do have to play kind of a compressed playoff series.
Yeah, and to your point, like the development and the usage of all these different pitchers has certainly helped the middle relief guys as well. And kind of like there are a lot of pretty good options there. When you look at Keller, when you look at Thielbar, and what role does Palencia get in there? Is he going to be the closer for sure? Like, will he be that guy that they just say, no, you're good, you're coming back, you're going to be the closer? Like, how do they? I think there are some options that they've got to work with there in the middle relief spot that should be pretty interesting, I think.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier, but Michael Soroka, I think could be a very interesting. Initially he was kind of picked up to be sort of that rotation guy, but now that's, I don't think, really going to be the role, or shouldn't be, unless they have, they use him in a bullpen game or something late when things are sewn up. If that's a guy who you can kind of let go in a 1, 2, 3 at the most inning relief appearance, if he has to, when he can throw a little bit harder and be up in the mid 90s versus kind of low to mid, that's a dude who looked really, really good in a relief role recently. And I think was one of the better relievers in baseball last year.
Yeah.
So
and aside,
yeah, I mean and I think I've been saying forever, Like that dude, and he's pitched pretty well of late, like better than I would have expected, especially after that first kind of rough one.
Yeah.
You've got those two guys. Again, you've got Savali. Ben Brown we've already said probably not a big check mark for him when it comes to working multiple innings, but they do have multiple guys who can work those if you have a problem with the starter, whether it's injury or poor performance, or if it's just a matchup thing, right? Because we all know that when you get to the playoffs, you would rather, and I know people don't like to hear this, especially if it's Cade Horton, you would rather pull a guy too early than too late. I'd rather have a dude rolling and pull him than to have him go out there and then, give up a 5 spot in the 6th inning and then be like, oh, shoot, if only we had pulled him before that 3rd time through the order. You know what I mean? And so that's the kind of thing I feel confident in the pitching. That to me is not a problem. It's can the offense score enough runs to make even, because that's the funny thing is everybody's bitching about Cade Horton getting pulled after the 5 innings of a no-no. And it's like, it doesn't matter if you can't score any runs. Like the whole thing is like, yeah, first of all, he was never going 9 innings. He was never going to throw 115 pitches in that anyway. So that's irrelevant. Let's not assume a no-hitter. What you can know for sure is the offense isn't scoring enough runs. And even 3, it was enough last night. It shouldn't be, though. Like 3 runs should not be. Now, maybe it is in the postseason, but if we're talking 3 runs against some mediocre competition on a lot of these nights, or 1 run, or a shutout, which we've seen against, Bryce freaking Elder from the Braves just shut him down 2 times in a row. And this is like, that's not as good of a pitcher as what you're going to be seeing in the postseason. And so you got to be able to score. The pitching doesn't worry me right now in the least. It's, can they put up crooked numbers consistently enough to make it matter?
And therein lies the question, right? That is the key to it all. But if you look at, the Cubs offensively have been just really bad the last month and a half, at least, maybe longer.
I'd go back to the start of the 2nd half. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but we've seen what they're capable of. And you look at the lineup and you see these guys and man, there's some firepower there.
Yeah. If they're healthy, if they can play, if they're not sitting on the bench for a week before being placed on the IL.
Exactly. All of those things. But you look at up and down the lineup, if you look at Michael Busch, you look at Horner, you look at Shaw, Swanson, Pete Crow Armstrong, Happ, Suzuki, Tucker, and if Amaya comes back, and even Kelly, really, there's no weakness there. If they're hitting up to their potential, there's no weakness in that lineup. And so that's really what you need, right?
That's what we saw early. Yeah, but imagine the early, like, what if we were talking about the June lineup with the way they were scoring, and then Matt Shaw still hitting like he's hitting now, right? Because at the time it was like, oh, so that's like
16 runs a game.
That's really scary, and it's not only, and this is a big thing that was happening earlier, and I did the research on this today because I was looking at it, like, they had a couple steals last night, and just in watching, it's like, man, it feels like when they're stealing bases, when they're being aggressive, they're winning more, right? But I want to look at it because there are a lot of things we could see, and I've been on Facebook long enough to know that plenty of folks believe that their own perception of what they see is the reality, right? Like Ian Happ has a bad game and he's the worst player in the history of the Cubs, right? Or to a lot of people. But I was looking at that and seeing it, and I'm like, well, is this accurate? And sure enough, it is, right? If you look at games in which they do not steal a base, and this includes them, I didn't go and look at how many times did they at least attempt, and in a lot of those cases, yes, and they got caught. But in games when they do not steal a base this season, they are 36 and 37, so 1 game under 500, which we know they're well over 500 on the whole. So that should tell us something. When they do steal a base, 1 base, they're 48 and 25. When they steal 2 or more bases, they're 32 and 8. That's an 800 winning percentage. Now, there's a lot that goes into that, because we could sit there and say, well, hey, if you're not getting on base, you can't steal. But I'm going to go ahead and say there are not 73 games in which they've been no hit. And they have not been perfectoed against 73 times, right? Which would indicate that they've never
been no hitters this year.
Right. They've not been no hit. They have reached base at least once in every single game. Now, there's other things. There's matchups. There's whatever. But there's one stretch that I looked at. At one point, there was a stretch from late June to July 28th to August 8th, 10-game stretch, where they did not steal a single base in any of those 10 games. No stolen.
What was the date? What were the date?
July 28th to August 8th. And they went 4-6. What was their
record?
4-6. Right? So, again, small sample, but as we saw, that tracks, right, pretty well with being under 500 when they don't steal. It's just and when you look at, they have like a 768 OPS with a man on third and 2 outs. That's actually pretty impressive. That's like 6th or 7th in Major League Baseball this year. So they have done, as much as people lament their, runners in scoring position. Hey, man on third, 2 outs. You can't get him in with a sac fly, right? You can't get him in with a fielder's choice. You've got to drive him in with a hit, or there's an error or whatever, but then that, wouldn't count towards some of the stuff. So they've done a good job. And so stealing bases, if they are aggressive, and that says to me, they can't wait until they need to make up those runs late. Like, they should be pushing the envelope early, pressing the issue. We saw that last night in Atlanta. Because why? Because they knew they were facing Chris Sale, a guy who doesn't give up a bunch of runs. And I feel like when they play a quote-unquote inferior opponent, be it the team or the pitcher, they have a tendency to sort of sit back and let the game come to them versus going and taking the game and setting the pace, right? I would like to see them do that more frequently, push the issue. Even if you are getting thrown out, at least you're in the back of their head. The pitcher knows you're going to be running. The catcher knows you're going to be running. The defense has to pinch a little bit more, and that opens up holes in the infield. It might have the pitcher a little bit distracted, things like that puts them in a better position to win. So, and again, we're talking about playoff baseball. We're talking about having to squeak out runs. That's what it comes down to. That's the kind of win that I saw last night. Mm-hmm. If they continue to operate that way, manufacturing some runs and doing stuff like that, it helps. The power can show up when it needs to, but there are certain things that you can do to proactively impact the game. And to me, the base running is a more proactive, more controllable way to do it. You can't make the pitcher throw the pitches you want. You can't have him put it in the locations you want. You can't prevent against the guy making a diving layout catch. But you sure as hell can give those hitters runners a green light and press that issue from a base running standpoint. So I think that, to me, that's a huge, huge key to their success going forward.
And that's what they were doing early in the season.
Yeah.
They were the aggressors. They were so aggressive against everybody they played. It's like they just went out there and they were just like, you're going to have to stop us.
Yes.
And I think I think you're right. You're right on with this, is that if the Cubs go into the playoffs with that mentality of, we are going to go until somebody stops us.
Right.
I think that this could be very interesting, right? Because like we were saying, the pitching is kind of stacking up pretty well, right? All things considered, the injuries and all the things that have happened over the season. And it's really just the offense. And really, we don't need guys crushing home runs. I mean, you want that, of course.
Yeah.
But just guys getting on base and being successful, moving to the next base, it's really just that simple, right? I mean, that's what all of baseball really is at the end of the day, right? It's just a simple mentality of get on base, get to the next base.
Yeah, but I think, and exactly what you're saying, there is, to me, a not so subtle difference between, on one hand, letting the game come to you, and on the other hand, pressing the issue and making your opponent beat you, or making them play catch up, whatever you want to say. In basketball, it'd be like, if you're an up and down, up tempo team, push the pace, make them run with you. Don't settle into a half court game with a team that doesn't run well. And that's where, it looked like there are times when I feel like this team is playing not to lose rather than playing to win. And it does, maybe that changes, right? Maybe that's a function of that we all sat there and talked about, oh, well, they've got this week schedule. Did they look at that and think that same thing and kind of play that like, oh, well, we can just wait a week to determine what Kyle Tucker is going to do. And some of that, I think more than a lot of that is on Tucker himself. And I've got thoughts on that. I won't get into that here. Namely about how that means more than anything that he probably won't be back next year. But that's just what I want to see from them, because this team can win in so many different ways. They can beat you with power. They can beat you with speed. They can beat you with pitching, with defense, with everything. But again, I want them to proactively do whatever they can from those different areas, because if that power doesn't show up, you've got to win in a different way. If the pitching isn't great, you've still got to find a way to win. And I think when I watch the Cubs, I get the sense of this team that kind of is just comfortable hanging back till that fourth or fifth or sixth inning to see how they're going to try to do it today. I know that's not true. That's an oversimplification of it, but it does not feel as if they're going into it saying, here's what we're going to do. We're going to come out of the gates and when we get on base, we're going to run. And when we, and we're going to bunt this guy over, we're going to push this early.
Yeah. You have to beat us at our game.
Right. And they're just like, well, we'll kind of see where the game's going and figure out what we need to do from there. And I'm like, no, don't do that. You're better than these teams. Go show them you're better. So.
Yes. I will make a prediction on Kyle Tucker and my prediction is going to be that Kyle Tucker will end up signing a 1-year deal because I don't think he's going to get the multi-year contract that he's looking for, especially after this year. And it's probably going to be with the Cubs.
I think he ends up with something like 5 to 6 years, but with a bunch of early opt-outs, kind of a front-loaded, something like the Bregman deal, something like the Correa deal. That's probably low-hanging fruit because those are both also former Astros. And I think Tucker, is he with Excel? He's not Boris. I can't remember if he's Excel Sports Management. But I don't want to say the Cubs don't want him back, because that's not true in and of itself. But I just get this vibe when you see things like Sahadev Sharma talk about how when the Cubs made the trade, they knew very well that he might be a rental. Like, it feels as if the things the Cubs are putting out there, not explicitly, it feels to me that perhaps the initial desire to really have that superstar in him, in and of himself, is perhaps the shine came off that a little bit. I'm not saying they wouldn't re-sign him, but I'm saying when you talk about Jeff Passan hit it, so that there's the Cubs, probably more so than any of the other big market teams, there's a point to which they will not go past. They're saying, this is sadly. And it could be like the Bellinger thing, like when Bellinger re-upped on his deal because he couldn't get something better and longer, or at least not good enough, that he opted back in.
And that's a little bit of a different, the talent level is different. Right?
It's different, but I could see the boomerang being like, he's not getting the 10-year, $400 million deal somewhere. And the Cubs, after, kind of missing out on Bregman because they wouldn't go to the level that the Red Sox did, could maybe do something like that, where it's a little bit shorter term. I think there are some things they do not just Tucker specifically, apply this however you like, but I think there are things there, in addition to their own unwillingness to do that kind of a deal, that would keep them away from some kind of a monster, again, 10-year, $400 million. I could see
that. Oh, that's not happening. There's no way that's happening.
I don't think it's happening with anybody. And I don't know if that's,
exactly.
It seems like there's it strikes me as if I put a lot of the onus on him for the way this IL thing was handled. And to me, that puts a sour taste in my mouth, because to me, that just says you're putting yourself first because you're worried that an IL designation would red flag your free agency. Like, dude, you just sat out for a week and couldn't play. Like, what's worse, being placed on the IL just precautionary, or sitting for a week and having
if he comes out in the playoffs and he rakes, sweep that all under the rug.
Yeah, Absolutely. I think his off-season value and what he's going to end up getting is a significantly different forecast right now than what it would have been in June.
But the Cubs are still going to need preferably a left-handed power bat, but a power bat nonetheless. They have to have that to be successful.
Yeah, for sure.
And is it going to be Owen Casey? That's a lot of pressure to put on him. I don't see that happening. And so who's it going to be? I think Suzuki's going to be in the final year of his contract, isn't he?
Yep, he is.
And he's not exactly what I would call a power bat. I mean,
put him back and right, and, rewrite history, rewrite the wrongs, and bring back Kyle Schwarber. Let's go.
Jeez, I don't even want to talk about that.
That won't happen either, because I don't think there's any way in hell they're going to pay what it's going to cost to bring him in as a DH. But I mean, I'd be totally cool if you told me it was honestly, like, at this point, just for the I'll be a total meatball here. I'd be cool with them putting Suzuki back in right for the year, bringing Schwarber in as a DH, letting the Dodgers or somebody give Tucker an insane amount of money, and let's roll. That would be more fun, at least.
That would work.
I'd be cool with it, and then let Casey be the understudy. Let him be the extra outfielder, whatever you got to do, or flip one of him and Alcantara, because I don't think they can both stick around. If you did something like that, if you made that move, I don't see them both staying in the organization. But we'll see.
Get a starting pitcher.
Yeah, I'm digging it.
A power arm. That'd be nice. All right. Well, it's been a good week. It's been a productive conversation. And I think we've got, did I close the schedule? I did. Let me just quickly look at the schedule. I think coming up.
Got the Rays.
The Cubs, have the Rays. The Cubs don't have a day off until the 22nd, at which time there'll be a lot of, we'll definitely know what's going to end up happening. That's for sure. But we might be able to circle back maybe next Thursday. They've got a day game on Wednesday against the Pirates at Pittsburgh, and then they play Cincinnati on the 18th, which is in a week, on Thursday at 6:15 Central. So I think I'm going to put a pin in that one and tentatively say we'll circle back then. And we should have obviously there's going to be 5 games played between now and then for the Cubs, and their magic number should be smaller. If it's not, we've got a major problem.
It's a very big problem.
Yeah. So anyways, good having you. Everyone, check us out on the socials. Check us out at cubsinsider.com. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
See you. Peace.